Hey guys, it's Tehi. We're doing the last boss, Nexus King Salhadaar, for PTR testing for the 27th. This fight is a doozy. I have no idea how long this video is going to be. I'm going to try to make it as short as possible, but there is a metric ton of information on this fight. And for an M tier boss fight, I've barely looked at myth mechanics. They look nuts. But even heroic, there's so much going on. So raid plan does this really cool thing where if I change where I want it to be on one image, it changes them for all of them. So bear with me here. This is what the entire arena looks like. As you can see, there's a middle platform with two outside platforms. I don't know if this top thing is worth anything or if this bottom thing is worth anything. We're gonna find that out. Maybe we won't even find it out this PTR testing. But this guy's the boss, the guy in the gold, pretty obvious. This Royal Voidwing, he's going to be in the fight until the last phase. We'll go over that later, but he's a pretty annoying guy that does a lot of very wild boss mechanical things, but they're all super annoying. And then we have these four ads. His two sons, Kyvor and Zephys, they basically are just kickable ads that are they kind of suck compared to like what this boss does. They kind of they didn't get their bosses or their dad's power, that's for sure. And then this Mana Forge Titan just self-destructs. We'll get to this later, and shoots missiles out, but he's just a kill it or you die kind of an ad. Probably the priority ad once you get to this intermission 1. And the Shadow Guard Reaper, which is like a Kaiveza wannabe kind of thing. So, anyways, this is the entire boss room. We went over this already. There is this mechanic called Banishment, and the boss banishes players. It's a dot followed up by instant damage. I can see this going one or two ways. I assume the majority of the fight's going to happen on the center platform, and the way it's going to work is you get banished, which can send you to a side platform, and then I assume you are flying back to the center. The only reason I think that might not be the case is it's a dot followed by instant damage. So if you get banished and like you're getting ticked while you're floating in the air, getting banished to this other platform, and then it goes off and you're not healthy, you're just dead, and that seems incredibly punishing. So maybe you just hang out on this platform and you get healed, and banishment just is a really crappy name for it. But just wanted to point out a potential for why these side platforms are going to exist. As I was looking through the boss abilities and putting this raid plan together, more ideas for why these side platforms exist started popping up, so we'll see if I can remember those as we go. This Royal Voidwing, like I said, is very annoying. Makes images of himself. It copies the main one's attacks. Has an ability called Fractal Call. Its images, it sounds like only the images it makes does this, and it executes players who get too close to them. There's an ability called Behead, which is this charge mechanic. It grabs you if you are in it, and I could definitely see it like throwing you off the map. So if you get picked up by this charge and the boss continues to fly, it could just drop you and you just die. So that's a potential one-shot mechanic that we need to be dodging. It does a Cosmic Grip, which is just a normal circle dodge, nothing big there. And then does Besiege, where it just a breath across the room. It feels very Vexiona-like from the N'Zoth tier. That boss was kind of a joke, but this guy kind of feels like Vexiona on steroids. Okay, so we're going to go to the center platform, because this is kind of where I expect this phase 1 to occur. There's this debuff called Decree Oathbound. It gives you 3 stacks of Oathbound. If this kills you, you get a mind control debuff called King's Thrall, which is an MC Enrage. It heals you to full, and you do 100% damage. So you're just going to start killing your friends. Obviously bad. You don't want to die, and yeah, so don't die in this phase or it's going to be wiped. And it seems really punishing because it's like, hey, everyone has to survive or we're all going to die kind of phase. In my experience, those are super annoying to progress. Invoke the Oath. This is the ability that goes off to end phase 1, I believe. And if you still have any stacks of Oathbound left out of phase 1, you just die. And I'm pretty sure this puts you, yep, it converts you into King's Thrall. So you get MC'd and you start killing your friends. Outside of that, there's a Tyranny dot, which is just a healing dot that has to go for the entire phase. So how are you getting rid of your Oathbound stacks? It feels very Sire Denathrius-like, where there's going to be a tank combo hit. The first one's called Conquer. It hits its current target, doing whatever damage and additional whatever damage split between all players within 8 yards and knocks them up. When you get hit by this, you lose a stack of Oathbound, but the next hit you take of Conquer is increased by 500% for the next 20 seconds. And then the other one is called Vanquish. So we'll say Group 1 took the Conquer, Group 2 is taking the Vanquish. And it cleaves his current target, doing whatever damage followed up by another set of damage by players in front of them. So this one seems less like a circle, actually, and seems more like it's a frontal cone. So we can make that quick change. Oh, crap. In any case, it's going to take... it's just going to do damage, and it's going to knock them away. So Conquer knocks you up, the second one knocks you away. The Vanquish does not make you lose a stack of Oathbound. It's only the Conquer, so it's only the circle one. So I can see this working in one of two ways. Either one, this is going to happen super frequently, and while you're dodging all of the mechanics that this Royal Voidwing is doing, you also have to get into your groups, so you take the Conquer while the other group takes the Vanquish hit, or both groups, or one group, sorry, takes the Conquer and then immediately follows it up by taking the Vanquish, which, since the Vanquish does not make you lose any stacks of Oathbound, seems more plausible. Now, because the debuff lasts 20 seconds, it's a 500% damage increase by both of those tank hits for the next 20 seconds. It makes me think these combos are going to happen really, really quick, like within like 12 to 15 seconds of one another. So everyone's really got to be on the spot of being where they need to be. What I would tell you going into this fight is you need to have preset made groups, and I definitely would not test this boss with more than 20 people. You don't want to have people making this mistake and holding back the rest of the group because they can't get into their soak. Your 20 best mechanical people is probably who you should be taking to this fight. And maybe even take less than 20, because the whole point of PTR testing is seeing as many mechanics as you can, and people getting MC'd with 100% damage amp is just going to get people killed. So take that into account. Yeah, the Tyranny thing keeps happening, and all the abilities that we covered with the Royal Voidwing are going to happen here too. So then we go into phase 2, and he tells the images of the Voidwing to get back into the real Voidwing, so all the images are now gone. So that means it's going to kill the amount of abilities that the Voidwing actually does by a pretty substantial amount. That execute claw thing is gone, which to me sounds like the biggest pain in the ass. But anyways, so he does this thing called Coalesce Voidwing, which dissolves the images. It kind of makes me think he might like actually get on the Voidwing, but he might not. So let's change this to like images go away, or Voidwing. I guess Voidwing images go away. Does a knockback thing. Oops. And then there's an ability called Netherbreaker, which he like throws a weapon. It sounds very Payne Smith-like, except it's not a tank ability. It's just a circle that you have to run out of. Pretty simple mechanic. Phase 2 actually kind of sounds relatively simple, except for what the Voidwing does. The Voidwing kind of starts doing some Kill Jaden stuff. It shoots a beam that needs to be dodged, but simultaneously when it shoots beams, which is called Dimension Breath, it opens up portals, which shoots more beams. So it gives me like Zakul / Kill Jaden type vibes. When we progressed Kill Jaden, I was the one that had to be the obelisk shot caller, and I sucked at it. I'm a much better player now than I was back then, but I have PTSD from that. So if this is actually how it's going to function, that kind of sucks. For those that did not progress Kill Jaden, historically what you would do in a situation like this is you would have someone have a raid marker because I assume like the longer you're in this phase, which I have no idea how long you're in this phase for, no one does. But let's say like the longer you're in this phase, the more of these portals open up, so there's more beams you have to dodge. You would just have your raid leader or a player that you trust put down a safe marker, and that's where the raid would collect at. But yeah, let's hope it's not too many portals. It's not like it's an end boss, but it is the second to last boss, and especially for a heroic mechanic, this could be incredibly punishing, even if it is the second to last boss of raid tier. Dimension Glare, it says it's a tank hit. It kind of seems a little weird to be a tank hit, but that's what it says. Any players that get hit by the breath, that damage gets mimicked back into the tanks. So if this guy were to get hit by the breath, which all of the numbers are whatever right now, that damage is going to get mimicked back into the tank. And then Cosmic Maw, which is an actual tank hit, it just hits the tank for a crap ton of damage. It's physical, and then it leaves a dot. And then if you take another one of these hits in the next 10 seconds, it's increased by 200%. So obviously you don't do that. And then on top of all of these breath beams and stuff like that, he continues to do his charge mechanic. So this one that grabs you and potentially, if I understand correctly, can actually throw you off the map. And then you still have to dodge circles. So now we go into intermission 1, and to give you a quick rundown of what all of the ads do, these two princes, Kyvor and Zevos, do the exact same thing. They shoot a beam in multiple directions, and then they just do like a single target blast cast that can be kicked, so it can be interrupted. And then this Maniforged Titan, if it hits 100% energy, it blows up, it does a self-destruct, and the entire raid dies. So you have to make sure you're doing that. It also shoots missiles that do some damage, whatever, who cares. This to me seems like the priority ad. These guys seem like, hey, kick rotation. And the Shadow Guard Reaper is like a Kaiveza wannabe, where it does the Twilight Massacre dash still, and also does a shadow step behind players that leaves a dot behind. So if it were, depending on how difficult these beams are, what I would expect the priority to be, just from their abilities, is this is number 1, the Reaper's number 2, and the two Princes are actually last, as long as you have a good kick rotation and you can trust your players to do a kick rotation. While all of this is happening, the boss does an AoE raid damage that pushes players away within 70 yards. So this platform I expect to not be very big, which means if you're anywhere on this platform, you're getting knocked off. So it makes me feel like when we go to this intermission, we're flying to the side platforms. Simultaneously, the boss and the Voidwing have 99% reduced damage. So let's go to one of the side pillars. So the right and left side pillar look the exact same. There's no difference. What I expect there to be is at least one Shadow Guard Reaper, at least one Maniforged Titan, and then Kyvor or Zevos, not both. So let's say on the right platform, Zevos exists, and on the left platform, Kyvor exists. But you're not going to get both. That doesn't make any sense. I assume you're going to have to Dragonfly to these side platforms. I don't really know how I feel about Dragon flying mid-boss fight. That seems a little strange to me, honestly. But yeah, so kick rotation for these guys. Dodge the Twilight Massacre through this, or if you cannot dodge it, then it targets a player, so you can't dodge it. It needs to hit one player, so like if you get targeted with this, what you would prefer to do is take it, presumably, depending on where the ad is at, to the outside of the room, where you would expect less of your friends to be at. And what you wouldn't want to do is like drag it across the entire room. So you want to take it to not just the outside of the room, but also make the smallest line you possibly can. It's not going to knock you back, so you don't have to worry about getting knocked off the platform. But you want to help your friends by reducing the amount of space they have to move and minimizing the danger area. So that's what I would probably suggest. Intermission 2, I assume we're going to be back in the center platform at this time. And weirdly enough, the boss is going to eat his Voidwing. He doesn't actually eat it, he just kind of like steals its energy or whatever. And while it's stealing its energy, he's still fighting. He's still doing this little charge thing that we have to dodge. The boss, I assume, is going to be 99% damage reduced here. When he gets done sucking the energy out of this, it's about 30 seconds long. Every point of health that it has gets siphoned into the boss. So let's say that, you know, if they had a 1-to-1 health pool, so the boss has 100 health, the Voidwing has 100 health, he would go to 200 HP, assuming he had 100 health left over still when he gets done sucking in his energy, right? I doubt they're going to have the same health pool, but to me, this demonstrates like Cleave, and especially like classes that are really good at 2-target are probably going to be king on this fight. 2 to 3 target classes probably really going to be good on this fight, especially like in intermission. If there's only 3-ish adds, 1 of the princes plus 1 Reaper plus 1 Mana Forge Titan, and you can stack them all together. Kind of makes me think like 2-target Cleave is going to be really good on this fight. So if you are a class that sucks at that kind of stinks. But anyways, so while he's sucking the energy out of the Voidwing, the Voidwing's taking 100% extra damage for those 30 seconds. The boss is also doing damage to everyone while he's sucking the energy out. The other thing that I would consider too is, depending on like how far this charge goes, this might be really melee unfriendly. I know Blizzard has been a lot better in the last few years about making fights so they're not super melee unfriendly, but if this charges across the entire platform and this guy's taking 99% reduced damage, that sucks. Like, I don't know how melee is going to keep uptime. So it also depends on the frequency of the charge. If it only happens once in those 30 seconds, then it's kind of whatever. But this might be Lust. It's a massive damage amp, and ideally what you wouldn't want to do is kill this ad before the 30 seconds is over, because then you just lost some of your damage amp, and this intermission probably ends a little bit sooner, which maybe offsets CDs a little bit, which is not good for what is probably going to be a really difficult boss fight, especially on Mythic. So if you run into that issue, and this is more of a prog thing, this isn't a PTR thing, you probably want to be focusing more boss damage and less ad damage. And the reason for that is just, if you can, like, you're trying to get the Voidwing as close to 0% health in this phase without killing it, if you really want to min-max, and that's probably too big brain. Killing it is probably just going to be completely fine. But you can also just do that damage back into the boss, and it's like nothing happened. But you definitely like need to be hitting this Voidwing in phase 1 and phase 2 as frequently as possible to make phase 3 take as little as possible. And phase 3 is a doozy. There is so much going on, and it's a little bit difficult to understand what's actually happening here. So we'll start with Galactic Smash. Its images of the boss show up. They do damage to all players. Players further away from one another take less damage. The primary target to the boss, only to the boss, not its images, according to, if you read it literally, gets Star Shattered, which it sounds like it's a tank hit, like a Painsmith throw weapon, run away from raid type thing. And they also get a Dark Star, which both form at the impact location. So wherever their Galactic Smash hits them, both of these things occur. So Dark Star spawns from Dark Orbit, and it orbits around the arena. If you get hit by this, it's a one-shot, and if Dark Stars end up running into each other, it wipes the entire raid. The next image in the next slide is kind of representing how I think it's going to work, but I really don't know. Nexus Collapse is consuming a Star Killer Nova, explodes a Dark Star, which does big raid damage and creates a Dimension Rend. We'll do Dimension Rend first, which just creates a void that does big damage to anyone in it and pulls them into its center. So it's just a circle that's just going to pull people in. It's happened multiple times across this raid tier already, so nothing out of the ordinary. Just really depends on how strong the pull-in is going to be. We'll skip Star Killer Swing for now and go to Star Killer Nova. A blast blocks out the sky and does raid-wide damage. PTR testing and numbers are kind of whatever, and I've talked about that before in other videos. the number that it gives for Starkiller Nova is like 30 million or something. It's ridiculous. But it also says that the collapse of a dark star creates a dimension rend. Like, a lot of these mechanics interact with each other, but it's super confusing how they interact with each other when the numbers I'm reading are all one-shots, and there's no boss ability that's like, hey, step in this thing and you take reduced damage. Similar to like the big circle on Kill Jaden at the last phase, where you run into that big green half circle to be somewhat safe from the boss's like big eruption when he went to the center of the room. There's nothing like that unless I'm just completely misunderstanding or I misread something. The last ability is Starkiller Swing, and the images of the boss shoot a missile at their targets, which does damage to players in the path and applies a dot called Twilight Scar. The Star Shattered tank hit occurs to the boss's primary target, and again, it if you want to take the journal literally, it says only Salhadaar's target, not the image's target. And each missile detonates in a Starkiller Nova unless consumed, which I assume means if these missiles don't get soaked or eaten before a Starkiller Nova comes out, they just instantly blow up from the Starkiller Nova. It could mean that, or the Starkiller Nova like eats them. I'm not sure. It's really, really confusing. I wish PTR was up right now so I could get better information about what's happening here, but this fight has a lot going on in almost every single phase. To me, it sounds like phase 1 is going to be either really easy, like Sire Denathrius phase 1 super easy, or it can be really difficult depending on like how that Twilight Voidwing works. Phase 2 seems pretty simple, and this phase 3 seems absolutely fucking insane. The last thing is this Twilight Spikes, which is just like a spike that pokes up out of the ground and knocks you up. Pretty simple, just get out of it, dodge. So to kind of represent what's going on here, these arrows are supposed to represent the Galactic Smash. So these do damage to players, and the further you are away, you take less damage, so you'll take this far. But it's also going to put a Star Shattered on the primary target, which, you know, if we're going to take it literally, let's say this is actually a tank. And then it's also going to spawn a Dark Star at the impact location. So if you get hit here with it as a tank, a Dark Star is going to spawn here. And these Dark Stars orbit around the arena. So if you get hit, let's say right here, I assume it's going to orbit like this, which is really bad, because if you touch this as a player, you're dead. So if you get this, you want to go to the far outside of the room and spin it around. The other super punishing thing is, if two Dark Stars run into each other, it also wipes the raid. So you have to be super smart about other Dark Stars that are already out, because if you go out here and get hit as this one is zooming by, then you just killed the entire raid, if I'm understanding this correctly. It's absolutely nuts. But yeah, so you'll take these far away. This Dimension Rend is the pull in mechanic. You just run away from that. This Starkiller Swing, again, boss and images shoot missiles at the targets. It does damage to players in its path and applies a dot, and does the Star Shattered. This is Star Shattered. I'm super dumb. It's late. Debuff to them as well. And each missile detonates in the Starkiller Nova unless consumed. So again, I talked about that already. Not really sure how it's going to work. To me, this does not do reduced damage if you soak it for your friends. So you don't soak this for your friends. You just get out. This fight seems really intense, and I'd be surprised if anyone but the top guilds in the world get to the last phase of the fight. This fight really seems insane, especially if you're like pugging PTR testing. Like, to me, you would probably get better value out of watching a super organized raid team do this fight than trying to pug this fight. This has so much going on. It would take so much coordination to figure things out, and you'd also just have to play with players that you trust. So this video's got to be over 20 minutes. Yeah, it's almost 25 minutes long. So real quick, these are all the ads. These boss is there the entire time. Voidwing is there until the last phase. These ads only exist in Intermission 1. This is an overview of the entire arena. The Spanish thing, I don't really know how it's going to work. I think you do stay on the center platform. I think it'd be really cruel if it sent you to the outside platforms because I think there's a huge potential that you just die. This Royal Voidwing, he absolutely stinks. I will link this raid plan in the description for this fight because there's a metric ton to think about. Dodge the charge, dodge the breath. This charge might grab you and throw you off the arena. Phase 1, I assume you're going to be in the center platform. You have to do this tank soak. You'll have to figure out if it's a Group 1 takes Conquer and the Vanquish, and then Group 2 takes the Conquer and the Vanquish, and back and forth you go. You need to get rid of all 3 stacks of Decree Oathbound by taking 3 hits of Conquer, but you can't take 3 back-to-back-to-back hits, or even back-to-back hits. You will die. If you don't get rid of your stacks, you just get MC'd and you start killing your raid team. That's not fun. Phase 2, probably doesn't mount his Voidwing, but the images of the Voidwing go away, and the annoying executability of getting too close to the images go away with them. There's a ability that you have to dodge. It does throw it at a target, so it'll be on you. Take it to the outside of the room so you are friendly to your raid team, and then get the heck out, assuming you can get the heck out. The Voidwing shoots beams and opens up portals that also shoot beams. Again, sounds like Kill Jaden. Kind of stinks. Tanks, you guys are just kind of doing normal things. Doesn't sound like there's going to be too much boss movement on this fight. Outside of like putting it in safe spots if like it's a Kill Jaden obelisk thing again. These are the abilities of all of the ads and what they do. This is Intermission 1. So if we go to one of the sides, it's going to be one of the princes, I would assume, and then also one of each of these 2 ads. Again, I would assume Mana Forge Titan is priority 1, the Shadowguard Reaper is number 2, and then the princes are 3rd. Unless these beams are super, super difficult to dodge, then maybe the priority changes, and then the Shadowguard Reaper becomes last. Intermission 2, we're probably back in the center. This bird takes 100% increased damage. This is probably Lust. You're trying to just put all your damage in here. I assume boss takes 99% reduced damage, so don't hit it. It still does its charge. The charge thing that I've said multiple times, I think might actually, if you get hit by it, actually throw you off the map, so make sure you're dodging. Phase 3, a million mechanics that I am having a really difficult time putting them together to make them work, but the things I do know, this Star Killer Swing does not need to be soaked. It does not reduce damage, so just take it out to the raid by yourself. This Galactic Smash is the other one. It puts Star Shattered on the tank target, I assume, and also forces a Dark Star to spawn. I believe you need to take this to the outside of the room as best you can, so that way these Dark Stars are hovering around the outside of the room as best as you can. You don't want these hovering around the inside of the room. Again, if they run into a player, the player dies. If 2 Dark Stars run into one another, the entire raid dies. And then the Dimension Run, which is just a normal pull and circle that you want to run away from. When it goes off, it just one-shots you if you're inside of it. So, yeah, use movement speed. This boss has the potential to be an absolute banger if these mechanics are cool. It also has the potential to be like a Stone Legion Generals, and it's just a complete shit show and a nightmare, and no one's having any fun, and everyone can't wait until the boss is just done. So, but yeah, this will be the last video since Dimensius doesn't get tested. I hope if you watched all of them, you enjoyed them and you learned something. I really just made these because I like to do raid planning stuff, but also it's kind of a fun mental exercise for me to see how close I can be to being correct about a fight I have never seen and no one has ever seen before. So Mythic testing will be in a week as well, so the videos that I make next week for Mythic testing will not cover the heroic mechanics unless they have interactions with the new Mythic mechanics that require some sort of overview. It'll probably be shorter videos for those ones that just kind of say like, hey, these are the changes you need to watch out for. Maybe multiple bosses all in one video. So thank you for watching. I appreciate it. If you like the content, like the video, subscribe, whatever. The other content that I make is trying to help people just become better raiders in WoW. And yeah, if you are PTR testing, good luck. I'm sorry this video is so long, but there's so many things going on. So good luck in your raid testing, good luck in next tier, and I will see you guys later. Bye.